Hi, welcome to the Pivot Point. For many years, online communities were primarily viewed as support destinations, a place where people could ask, customers rather, could ask questions, find answers, and help solve each other's problems. But something has changed. Today's leading organizations are rethinking the role of community entirely. Communities are becoming places where customers learn, discover, engage, influence product direction, build relationships, and contribute to the overall customer experience. In many ways, the community is evolving from being a support channel into something much bigger, a strategic engagement layer that sits at the center of the customer journey. To explore that transformation today, I am joined by Kourtney Barnes from Bettermode. At Bettermode, Courtney works closely with organizations that are building modern customer communities and helping them create more meaningful experiences. Through that work, she has developed a unique perspective on how communities are driving customer success, product adoption, advocacy, and delivering long term value. We will explore how communities are becoming one of the most important engagement layers in this customer journey. Courtney, welcome. Great to have you here.
Likewise, thank you. I'm thrilled to be here. I appreciate the intro and really excited to explore this topic. I think it's something at Better Mode we're really passionate about. It feels like there is, as you say, sort of a pivot in the air, and people are beginning to think differently about community and the value that it can really bring to your business. And personally, as a marketer for a couple of decades at this point, I see a real opportunity in thinking about how we move beyond sort of that retention and support to think about it as a true growth driver and a revenue generator.
Great. So, as I was saying earlier, organizations have typically treated communities as deflection engines and support engines. But today, most of the community programs are driving value far beyond support. And you've worked across with organizations across different industries at maturity levels. Um, and is that the biggest shift? How are you seeing the shift playing out?
Absolutely. And I mean, you certainly hit it. Like a lot of communities sort of start off as support, right? That's the typical use case we think of. But then they grow into so much more because I think folks start to realize it's this is a source of intelligence. We can learn from our customers, we can have that dialogue. And I think it's happening for a couple of reasons. And I certainly think that community is having a bit of a moment for a couple of reasons. One being marketing channels are degrading, right? It's getting more expensive, less efficient in order to reach our customers. Distribution is really hard, right? We want to have this dialogue. And then I think particularly with, so the rise of AI content, it's really noisy out there. So the opportunity to have this dialogue in a branded community experience is really, really critical. I recently saw a stat that talked about deals that are community involved can close 40% faster. And so I think there's starting to be a realization that yes, support is incredibly important. Yes, customer success is important, but that go-to-market motion is so interlinked between sales, marketing, customer success, and I would put product in there as well, where this is an opportunity to break down some silos and work together. And it's beginning to take shape where it's more than just support, it's more than engagement, it's really business outcomes.
Great. And what we also see is that the community sort of also becomes has always been, it mirrors basically what the customers are doing. They're moving between using the product, learning the platform, or even accessing support systems, social channels, and the peer network. So the community becomes like the hub of every customer activity, and I think that's where we expect to see more and more communities go. So, from your experience, how do you see the most successful companies position their community? Are they able to position them as the central engagement layer to drive you mentioned the sort of advantage of having a closed audience to sell to, and also to drive product behavior, if you will. Do you have examples of what these companies that you've dealt with who have been very successful we're looking at the community as the engagement layer for customers and driving strategic business value, not just strategic, actual real business value. What do they do which is different, or what do they do which others can learn from?
I mean, I think it's multifaceted for the companies that really do it well, because they do believe that support is an important part. They do believe that listening to their customers, that when customers come to this hub, as you call it, and it very much is, it's an area to build trust, right? So not only with the brand, but with each other. So people want to learn from people. I think naturally we trust our peers. We want to hear their experiences. Yes, we accept what a brand might tell us, but really that engagement is very, very important. And so I think what the companies that are doing it really well is they're taking that foundation, the sort of the true sense of community, and they're building upon it and breaking down those silos and saying that engagement is really important. And I think that's something that both community leaders and marketing leaders have sort of like stumbled on for a long time. We're like, well, what does engagement mean? But the idea really to me is like, engagement is how you get there in a community. It's not the outcome that we're looking for. And so the companies that are doing it really well are thinking about the outcomes, not the input. So yes, support is really important, engaging with our customers, being kind of timely and topical, and engagement is really important. But it's thinking, how do we really measure this? What is this engagement doing for us? And how can we report this back to business? And the companies that are doing that well are thinking about it in that way. So connecting it to expansion, retention, pipeline, revenue. So it's those that can understand sort of the strategy and how we want to engage with our customers, but then really what does it mean to business? Because you can't take engagement score to your board or your C-suite. Those numbers, they just don't mean anything. So I think it's the folks that are doing it well are taking that and then tying it back to business. And that's where sort of that magic is happening and people are starting to see the overall value.
Okay, so what you're saying is that best-in-class companies are tying communities or holding them responsible for business metrics, whether it is deflection for the support use case, retention for the success use case, or expansion. And I think the fourth one that is evident is the number of product ideas that you can source from the community to drive product direction, because that in itself will drive a lot of customer ownership, if you will, to drive the business going forward. Great. So in terms of I guess we've laid out what how to measure the outcome of the community, and I think it's refreshing to hear. It's almost as if it's not even marketing, it's now the entire GTM motion, where we are saying, hey, community is going to be an equal stakes player with your revenue operations, with all the success that you are looking to drive as a company rather than just being an add-on. And I see that morph, I think, more often than not in a lot of my community management friends, that they're now wearing first the marketing hat and now the business hat, if you will, and driving that conversation. Have you seen a lot of community managers? You deal with a lot of these community managers. Have you seen them make that transition successfully, or I'm biased by my size of customers?
No, absolutely. And I mean, I think it's because there's sort of been this realization where they are sitting on this treasure trove of intelligence. And to your point, like the intelligence we can learn from customers can influence the product roadmap. It's also so they're very valuable to the product team, right? Like that feedback loop is really, really valuable. They're also incredibly important, obviously, to the CS team. So no matter where that community manager sits, sometimes it's in marketing, sometimes it's in CS, like it's sort of a role that can sit many places. They have so much to offer cross-functionally to different departments. I think from a marketing standpoint, one of the things as marketers we always sort of get closer to or want to get closer to is, how do we speak the customer's language? How do we speak to them in a way that resonates? In this case, you could just go look at how they're talking about your product, look at the language that they're using, look at their feelings, gauge their attitude. There's just so much behavioral data in there. So I think the community managers that are seeing, their seat elevated or their place in the business elevated are the ones that are saying, we have something to offer the business and the customers, right? And they are doing it really well. And I think they're taking this data that we're sitting on, because I mean, at this point, we all want data. There's so much we can do with it. There's so much we can learn from it, and they're the keepers of this really important customer data that can shape, to your point, across the go-to-market motion. They have a power to shape this. Not to mention to engage with our customers on a very sort of personal one-to-one branded experience. So there's a lot there, and I think the ones that are sort of realizing this are doing a really great job, because often, particularly with our larger enterprise clients, like there's a lot of silos in organizations, and it's just you don't know where this sits. And so in smaller teams, we can be more nimble and share it out, but it's also very possible to do so in larger enterprise customers. So it's a great opportunity. And I think that's where the technology comes in, right? Where we can have these things that we can surface this and use this. Because I think that was the problem. We couldn't really process it. It was maybe they could scrape it and send a report or what it might be. But the exciting thing is there's the technologies there. We're working on some really exciting agentic layers that are making this very possible. But only so you can be more human and you can do better things. So it's an exciting time.
I agree. I think I've seen some of my friends who are community managers make the switch to not just look at community as being a community management kind of role, but also whether it's a customer marketing or a customer advocacy or a bigger role within the organization. And I think the standard things that a community manager would do have probably gone away or have been automated using AI to a large degree. So that frees you up, to your point. The community owner, let me not call him the community or her the community manager, from being a conscious, significant contributor to the business. And AI tools, the agentic tools especially, now, for example, I remember for the longest time we had the hardest time pulling out engagement data from older platforms. We would dump everything into a SQL database and run a query, and then you'd find, oh shoot, you missed this, and then you have to do this all over again. But I think with agentic layers and MCP servers, it's so easy to actually get the real data out, and very fast, so that now the person who's actually the community owner can make those decisions, if you will. And the signals that you want can be surfaced also very quickly, right? In terms of because what we see is that signals, for example, can come from everywhere, right? Signals come from community, from inside the product, in the support experiences, in the learning experiences, and individually, there's no place to put them together. But with AI, we can now assemble these and offer a more real-time view of the customer, where the community sort of leads the interaction piece, because that's the place the dissatisfaction will surface the fastest, right? Apart from the support interaction, which are hidden away, right? So it becomes even more important. But I think all of these signals, if we can, with the new AI and the MCP servers that are now available for each one of these platforms, or with some platforms like ours, which allow you to collect the signals in one place, community becomes a very important part of the entire communication between the customer and the vendor, if you will, the software company, if you will. But let me just switch focus a little bit. There is a lot of talk about AI generated content, especially on public platforms, right? AI Slop, right? And what would your advice be for companies to leverage automation and AI, but still preserve authenticity, trust, and meaningful engagement within their communities? Are you guys doing something special, or are there some techniques that you would recommend people follow, or is it back to being a little bit more moderation assisted by AI to help you? Because you see a whole bunch of this, gaming the entire Reddit or the public worlds, if you will.
It's so interesting, and this is something I've been talking so much about, like as a marketer, in terms of my work, in terms of like community, and my feeling is that, well, just taking AI, like how I work as a marketer today is so different than how I was working even in December, like before Claude Cowork became a meaningful part. I mean, it's really changed how I work as a marketer, and there's so much that has made it better, and you don't want to go back. And then there's things that are driving me crazy, to your point about the AI generated content and the slop. And I think I'm starting to see like a little bit of that fatigue on AI is rising as quickly as the adoption did in some ways. And so I think the way, particularly for community, but also this is true for marketing, what it's really doing for us is like it's allowing us to be creative. It's actually mandating that we're creative because there's just so much sameness now, and there's so much mediocrity with sort of like the AI generated content, and people don't want that. They can see through it very quickly. So what I think is super interesting, it's the things you spoke about, and we have our sort of Toggy intelligence, which you said, it's moderation, and we really sort of like make sure that it learns on your community, so it's not generic. We have a growth feature that's about sort of engagement and nudges and expert graphs, again, sourcing that intelligence, and then a builder. So it's like your speed to value. But what it's not doing is having bots posing as people. Like, we don't want them creating all the content. We want them sourcing this intelligence, sort of sharing it with the community manager so they can make this like more informed decisions and not spend as much of their time doing that like daily grind. But I think that's the really important distinction. It's like it's empowering people to do more, but it's not taking away that personalization, because I think that's what's going to be so amazing about community spaces now and for the foreseeable. I don't know what we can talk about, 6 month spans, year, everything's moving so quickly, but people want to talk to people. Like, we don't want to take away the human personalization of community, because that's the great part of it, right? It's really kind of building those relationships, building a relationship with your customers. They build relationships with each other. Those are the things we don't want to strip away, right? Like, I want that to be really, kind of what takes this into the next level, but using the technology in a way that supports. So that's how I'm thinking, like in my own work too. It's like, are we solving a problem with this AI? Then great, let's pursue it, but not at the cost of some sort of relationship or being very genuine. So I think that's the balance we have to strike as we move forward with this, is making sure that it doesn't just become bots talking to bots, right? I mean, I think the stat just came out where more web traffic is now from bots than people in certain cases. And so it's like we need to be careful that we keep community's essence intact while we expedite, accelerate, sort of do all the wonderful things that AI can do for us, but keeping it very genuine.
I agree. I think what has happened is that sometimes you wonder if it's the public markets that are driving a lot of the hype. I mean, already people are complaining about Dario Amodoi. I don't know if I pronounced it right. Talking up what AI can do. I was talking to my head of AI in my product team, and he was saying, really, I wonder if we'll have jobs 3 years from now. I said, can you solve that problem that you have on your to-do list for 3 months now with AI? And the answer is no. So he says, duh, you have your answer. You need people to solve problems, even with AI. It's not going to deliver all the answers. And I think the other interesting anecdotal evidence I have is that in the sales world, um, the best advice that I'm seeing nowadays is that, hey, COVID's over, 3x the number of in-person meetings. People want to meet and feel people rather than talk to bots, because they're just sick and tired of AI slop or
We just filter it out. It becomes noise, and it's static in the background. And I think you're absolutely right. Like, you want to speak to a person, you want to hear their honest take. We don't want this polished. I mean, one of the things I'm always thinking is like, the documents are so long. Everything that's produced by, it's so long. And like, I just want to hear a person, what they think, like, talk to me, communicate to me the way I want to be communicated to. And I think that's why community is so wonderful, right? It's like you cut to the chase, you speak to each other, you learn from customers, and it doesn't need this AI sort of polish over it. But the underlying technology is really amazing. If it can cut out some of the moderation needs that are the grind why community managers, previously didn't have the time to take a step back and think about the business
Mhm.
because they were just in it, right? You get in the weeds on your day-to-day work. If you can actually free up some of that, we really can step back, think about problems we're trying to solve, think about how to deliver wow moments, right? Like, wouldn't that be great if a community, like, instead of dealing with sort of the firefighting and those things, if they could have a few minutes to think of like, wow, what's something cool we can do with our customers? That I think is how we're going to say like, yes, AI is improving our jobs, right? Like that's making us smarter and kind of be able to do more creative and interesting things.
I think so too. I think we are at a point where we want AI to recede into the background. It help us do our jobs better, rather than just be in the get me to talk to a bot all the time. It's distracting. I really don't like the bots that call me all the time. Right? It's okay to approve a banking transaction, but I crave human interaction. Maybe it's my age showing, but I think that's true for most people, that they would want that connection. And the more authentic you can make that connection and use AI for the value that it delivers in, automating a large part of moderation, for example. I remember there was once a community where we used to manually moderate, and it was the community which was run by a church, and there was so much profanity that we had to filter out. I had two moderators working just on filtering, that kind of stuff. And nowadays, it's just I can do that in a cinch, as an example.
Exactly. No, and that's exactly it. We've been testing in beta moderation, and it's learned on your environment, and it's exactly that. So you can set the parameters of no profanity, no, and you really let it learn your community. The other thing I think is super cool is we're working on sort of a builder. So you just a natural language can sort of say, this is what I want, this is the use case, this is what I'm trying to prove out. And your community is built in 15 minutes. And then you can start tweaking it and making it yours and personalizing it. But taking away some of the laborious sort of admin work out of things so then you can spend more time, like that's what gets exciting, I think, for me. Like writing a long memo or summarizing, like, yeah, it's helpful, but these are the things where it's like it allows us to do our jobs in a new way that's exciting. So I think it's going to be an interesting 6 months, year, whatever, we'll see where we can get to, because the technology is a lot better than sometimes
Yeah.
I'm still wowed by what it can do. Like when I'm like, wow, okay, that was great. That was really cool. That was very interesting.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the key, and I'm trying to summarize so that we stay within our time frame, is that hey, uh, communities enable human interaction, and that's what they should focus on. They're able to drive business outcomes. So managers and community owners, they need to talk the language of business. So they're not viewed as a community manager that you have to put together for your software, but as a strategic partner in all the areas that you mentioned: product, support, which is the original use case, marketing, messaging. I mean, you can try out marketing, different messaging. You can get people to rank them for you, as an example, or you can run A/B tests on your community. All of these things, and these are all enabled and powered by AI, so that you can create now an integrated experience by integrating, making the community the center, which is something like what we do in SearchUnify and some of the communities we build. And as you mentioned, that there are tools now available which will allow you to, build stuff on your own, so that you can test out your hypothesis about how people, do they want the sidebar on the left or the right or the top, right? All of that, which you always wondered and wanted to do, um, you can do that on your own. So you don't need a expert to do that tweaking, and get the results you want, and you can compare the results, because now, especially if the community platform can offer great connections to Gen AI tools, whether through an MCP server or something like that, or you can provide, like you said, agents, um, like you guys are thinking, or we provide some agents, and those help solve problems, so that we reinforce that human connection to drive the business outcomes. Is a good summary of what we've discussed so far.
Yeah, absolutely. It sparks more thoughts, but I think that's 100%.
Great. Thank you so much. I think this has been a joy and a delight to have this conversation. And I look forward to sharing more deeper insights into each of these areas as we go forward and as we strengthen our partnership with Better Mode. And look forward to seeing, uh, you know, more insights coming out from you guys as we go forward. Thank you once again. If you have any closing remarks,
No, thank you. It was a pleasure. I enjoyed this conversation. I could talk about it for hours. So, yeah, let's resume. But this was great. Thanks so much.
great. Thank you, Courtney. Thank you, viewers.